Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
First, before I ask a few questions, I do want to thank you and your staff for your tremendous effort last year in the Adirondacks, in particular the two constitutional amendments that we worked on, the Finch land classification, which I think everyone I talked to, I would say 98% of them thought that was a very reasonable compromise and a good outcome from every perspective. And as was mentioned today, I also know that you've had a few very high-profile search and rescue efforts in the Adirondacks and employing a lot of manpower from your rangers and your ECOs, and we certainly appreciate everything that they do, especially myself personally, because I'm one of those guys trouncing around in the woods up there. Hopefully I never have to call on their services.
We'll be there if you need us.
Thanks. A couple quick questions. First, I want to ask a little bit about some more detail on your thoughts on aquatic invasive species. As you know, I'm proud that Warren County took a very proactive and leadership position on this as it pertains mostly to Lake George over the last few years, and I think we've turned a corner there and we're heading in a good direction there. And I'm encouraged that the state and your department is now looking at a statewide perspective on aquatic invasive species. Of course, just taking my Lake George perspective and knowing the numbers involved there for funding, this can be staggering. So I was just curious if you could share, a little bit more detail on the plan, and then of course the big question here today is funding of the plan and where the sources are likely to come from for aquatic invasives.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I will share the actual plan with you hopefully in April. The staff has been working on a statewide plan for probably over a year now, and we hope to put it out in a couple of months. I think you're right. What you won't find is that we're going to try to replicate the experience in Lake George every place in the state, because I don't think it is possible financially, but it's also not necessary. Not all lakes get the same kind of traffic that Lake George does, or have the same type of aquatic environment that Lake George does. So it is certainly not one size fits all. We have dedicated resources to help that effort in Lake George, and we're very much regarding it as a 2-year pilot, because we want to see if it works the way people hope it works. And we certainly hope that things like the Asian clam is arrested finally, and that it's successful. But there's lots of different ways to approach aquatic invasive species. I mentioned that we've done 2 separate rulemakings, one proposed and one final, following up on legislation that you all passed. The most recent, just a law prohibiting people from putting boats and trailers in water bodies at DEC facilities where we have jurisdiction, is just a tool. It's an enforcement tool. It's really meant to discourage people, create awareness. In the end, I think public awareness of the problem is half the battle, because if people don't recognize that when they have plants and animals attached to their boats and trailers that could cause a huge problem, it is impossible to police everywhere kind of all the time. It's just it's a huge task. But one, creating laws that are disincentives and enforcing them when appropriate, I think is going to create a lot of public awareness. So public education will obviously be a big part of it. We fund through the EPF these regional partnerships and invasive species management programs, PRISMs as they're known, throughout the state. Those are our kind of feet on the ground that we work with not-for-profits like the Nature Conservancy and others to come up with localized plans, and the EPF provides the funds to them to actually implement specific projects in different regions where there are different pests that are problematic. And it's not all about lakes, it's also, it's terrestrial problems as well. The emerald ash borer is a huge problem, and thanks to some federal funds, we've been successful in addressing at least the slowing down, we think, the spread of that across the state to stop ash mortality. So it's a multi-headed beast, and we hope the statewide plan, again, furthers the cause, and we'll probably be talking to you more about any additional legislation that we feel we might need in the future.
All right. Well, I thank you for that. Certainly my concern, and I agree with you that each lake and each need is going to be tailored, and which makes your job a little more difficult. But I think you're absolutely right. You couldn't you couldn't treat every lake the same. I don't think that's feasible. But one of my concerns long-term for the funding, because while we've been talking about plans, the debate on funding hasn't really hit the front page yet, but certainly a lot of local governments, a lot of private property owners are concerned, what is the local share going to be? Should there be a significant local share on state-owned waterways? And then, of course, the impacts of dock fees, boat fees, tax overlay districts. I mean,
Sure.
It's potentially very expensive. The other question I had is regarding UMPs, unit management plans, and the review process. Really from a budgetary perspective, I'm not familiar with the number that are out there, but I know that there's a goal to periodically review all of them. And I was just, my question is, are we keeping up, or what is there a targeted review shelf life for them, and what is our current average perhaps stand at? And where I'm going with that is your department adequately staffed to keep up with these UMP reviews?
Like with most of our work, it's a bit of triage. We put the highest use public lands at the top of the list for completion of UMPs. Where there are issues with public use, we obviously want to get those done. And we do, I don't know, I'll have to get you the specific numbers on how many we do annually, whether that's increased or decreased. I'm not sure. They come across my desk routinely. I just approved 2 in your neck of the woods for Hurricane Mountain and St. Regis specifically for the fire towers there. Those are, were areas that get a lot of public use. There was a lot of public interest. So staff, those again went to the top of the list. So we try our best to keep up, but we start with the ones that will have the most impact on public use, and where issues of public use are the most significant.
And I'll just close by saying, I know that these 2 questions that I asked are really related to a bigger theme that I know you get from a lot of local government folks like myself. Used to be in the Adirondacks about future land acquisition and balancing your ability to care for the land you currently have. And that's, those are not your decisions to make these land purchases. They come, at a higher level. But, moving forward, the idea that we need to make sure that we've taken care of the land we currently own before we volunteer to purchase more land. Everyone wants to buy land, but we need to be stewards of what we've already taken on. So that's my perspective.
Appreciate
and I know you
that.
get it. Thank you.
Thank you.